Welcome, everybody, to episode 19 of PT Shop Talk. On this episode, we talk about adhesive capsulitis as well as our top 5 favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. That's Doctor Strange, whatever is coming out or came out. So that's what we'll talk about today.
Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness. Thanks, producer Nick. Who's with me today? Nick, by the way, this is a friend of mine, Tree Doling, and Jeremy. I am Groot Van Klompenberg.
You are Groot.
Groot.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, Casey. I'm sorry, I totally bombarded the intro even.
No, I should have been better prepared. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I am not as big of an MCU guy, I think, as you are. Maybe.
Well, okay, I threw out MCU because we were struggling with the Cinco de Mayo, which is when we're recording. We're cutting this thing.
Now, when we're talking about struggling, I was all for tequila. I was all for tacos. I didn't turn down any of the top 5s.
But how do you do a top 5 tacos? I mean, top 5 tacos you've ever had?
Yeah,
taco joints?
Like, you're going to have to expand these top 5s eventually. We're going to run out of things to talk about.
I will, but I mean, how many good tequilas are there?
I don't know, 5 at least, probably.
Jeremy's saying 0. People on YouTube saw 0 from Jeremy.
None. I mean, that's fair. That's why we didn't go with tequilas. That probably would have been one man show.
So it was getting thinner. And then I saw a trailer for Doctor Strange. I saw the release date, and I'm like, hey, we talked back at Disappointment Films. You were kind of piggybacking off of J-Bone here on how bad DC Universe was.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like, I'm thinking by proxy, maybe you're an MCU guy. You had to choose. So you at least have to have some topical interest.
Oh, I mean, I've probably seen close to 20 of the 27-ish that have been out. So don't get me wrong. I have a base.
Yeah, we'll be able to get through it.
I just can't say I've watched. I don't know if I've watched any more than twice. Probably be my max.
Is Iron Man 2 going to be your number 1?
That is with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, because he had electric lips.
Yeah. No, never seen that one. Spoiler alert. It will not be on my top 5.
It's actually, I think it's underrated. I think
might be on mine.
A lot. Really? Okay.
Might be on mine.
I've never seen it. It seems like a lot of people crap on it. So
I
never had the desire to see it.
I think I got 2 kind of uncommon takes. I'm not gonna say a hot take, kind of like a warm take, but ones that don't always get tossed up there.
Warm take.
Take.
Okay. Like you're saving that for your list, or it's a warm take right now that I should set a plate out
I'll save it for the list. I'll save it.
Okay. Thank goodness. Save some for later.
Can't let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. How did you guys? You guys are big draft guys? You guys draft guys? That has come and gone now. The NFL draft, if you're familiar.
This was the least amount of collective time I paid any attention to the draft, I think, ever.
Specific reason? You hated all the players?
Well, no, because we were cutting our pod last Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And conveniently, the moment we were done recording, the Vikings were on the clock with their initial projected pick at number 12. And then they traded that down, and then they just continued. I mean, it's just a kind of a blah draft. I mean, it could turn out to be a very solid one, but there's nothing really electrifying in it. How about you, Jeremy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Kind of disappointed that we traded down within the division twice early on. What's it? We were talking Watson.
Yeah,
that would have been kind of a cool
my boy. Now I'm gonna have to be a Packer guy, I guess.
Shut up.
That's where I base all my geographics from, so it makes sense.
We should have taken him. He could have stayed indoors where he's most productive. I mean, if you hit up, Jeremy and I were having a good discussion on this, and just from the business sense of the NFL, like when you have coin flip drafts and you can take somebody who's semi-homegrown like a Christian Watson or a full homegrown like Blaze Andrews, like for no picks, you just sign them undrafted. Like, why don't they do that? Because the potential upside is so massive if you hit on it. Like, look at Adam Thielen. I don't think anybody's sold more jerseys aside from like Randy Moss for the Minnesota Vikings. I think I could be wrong, but I think it was like 4 or 5 years in a row. Adam Thielen was the number one selling jersey for the Vikings. So, I mean, if you put your cards right, you take a guy like that, if everything else is the same, man, it could be a massive business venture for you.
Yeah, I would agree. It's very surprising because I don't know the last like Bison player that ever played for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of these guys getting signed, like said, undrafted free agents that cost you nothing.
Yeah.
If you hit on them, it's awesome. I mean, the Joe Mauer effect too. Local guys that do great. I mean, that's huge.
It's a very interesting situation when you look at like Blaze Andrews too, who is not only undrafted, Minnesota guy from right here in Marshall, but on top of that, he would fit a need. I mean, it's pretty much the weakest part of our whole team. You couldn't use a little bit of depth there and see if it flushes out. I mean, it's just a little bit surprising. But good for him. He's with the Dolphins. I mean, hopefully that pans out for him.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and just cool. Never know what is on the mind of these GMs. Sometimes it would be interesting to sit into a draft room and just watch the craziness of it all.
Yeah. How do I pronounce the last name of that defensive end for the Bison that got drafted? Cordell what?
Volson.
And who
he was
him?
An offensive lineman, guard.
Oh, offensive. Sorry.
Yeah. He went to the Bengals. Is that right?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't sure. But I saw the Bison on their Instagram. Have you guys seen that video of him like getting the call?
I haven't seen that video. Yeah, I do follow it on Twitter. It's just I was kind of like you. This was like the weakest football week for me ever. I mean, I just wasn't into it. Yeah, he was the Bengals. So yeah, I've just been doing some stuff with the podcast, and that's been taking up some of my time. So I haven't followed it. No, tell me about the video.
You got to watch it and just appreciate it. And when you see it, it is about the most North Dakota draft party you'll ever see. It's so like they're all wearing like
at home in Balfour.
Yeah, they're all wearing like jeans and like Carhartt hoodies and hanging out in a heated shop with it like on a projector screen. I mean,
let's go.
The video, it's like a 10-second clip. It's as soon as you see it, you're like, God, I swear I partied at identical places to that repeatedly in my life.
Yeah, it's funny. He seemed like definitely one of those classic North Dakota farm kids.
Yeah. Good for him. Good for him, man.
Got a nice mean streak to him, which I think helps in the NFL. So
yeah, tough guy. Man, but you go back to the draft. I used to have some fun watching the draft with some guys. I mean, back when it used to just be a Saturday deal, Sunday, we get up early. Yeah, I kind of still do too. I mean, yeah, but we'd get up early and just start, cracking them and cooking food. Yeah, it's just a blast. Overanalyzing everything, like every team's picks.
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah, you always had to like see what kind of garbage the Jets were gonna get. That was always the fun.
Who incredibly were like they scored them out like the highest. Them and the Giants, or at least I saw a lot of A-minuses, A's for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw A- on the little bit that I looked up. So they're doing it. They're doing it.
Well, they have people. They haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They have yet to do it.
They won the draft. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I guess that's not the only thing they've won. But it's just you got to put it all together. And some of those franchises just seem so just snake bit. I don't know. It's been a long time since the Jets, man.
Yeah, you wonder. Like I get like the Commanders, like Washington. I get why they have trouble. But yeah, like some teams, like the Jets. I guess maybe I don't know enough about them to be like, why can't you guys just pull it together like once?
Everyone was really high on Washington at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, they made the playoffs the year before, kind of as a little bit of a fluke. But yeah, they had some talent, I think.
Yeah, I just speak more towards like the culture of Washington and why they continue to be kind of a floundering team. Like I kind of get why they flounder. I get a little bit why the Browns have floundered. Like upper management has been just absolutely miserable.
Atrocious,
Kind of the same
yeah.
thing with Jacksonville, like the Jags. I just don't know if their owner really 100% knows what he wants to do ever. So some of those teams I get.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we got a
well,
place like New York, man. How do you mess up year after year?
We're going to find out about Quessy, and we're going to find out about O'Connell and what they, what their whole plan and mission is. We're going to find all that out.
Get as many draft picks as you possibly can so far.
With at least the Jets and the Giants each have their own. Giants have like 4 Super Bowl rings, so
yeah, you can't.
The sympathy thing isn't really there. Yeah, I'm blanking on a segue. Like, how do we get into our topic of the day? Like, adhesive capsulitis. Did anybody have shoulder injuries that were drafted?
Oh, you know what we really should have done? We should have went from Christian Watson, frozen tundra, frozen shoulder.
Ooh, you nailed it right there.
I mean, someone should have had that on deck.
I'll take it away.
You're freezing. You're freezing at under 32 degrees or Fahrenheit, and your shoulder is frozen after 30 degrees of external rotation.
It's just
what?
Go up. Capsule. All right. Topic of the day, PT topic of the day: adhesive capsulitis, also known as frozen shoulder.
Yeah,
so very common. Jeremy, take us away. What is frozen shoulder?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. A pretty common shoulder condition. We're looking at basically painful, restricted, active, and passive motion. So for those of you that aren't PTs at home, we have a capsule that surrounds every joint. And basically, in this case, it freezes up, it shrivels up, it adheses up. So basically, we don't really know why it happens. And we don't really see this happen at any other joint in the body. So in terms of, we have what we call primary and secondary. So some of it will just come on its own, but otherwise you can have secondary factors, diabetes, thyroid issues, different things like CVA, anything really that would limit shoulder motion. Could be fractures, could be tendonitis, could be rotator cuff tears. So basically what we do is we separate it into stages. So stage 1, you're kind of looking at symptoms for 0 to 3 months. We would say there's capsular pattern, limited flexion, abduction, and both rotations actually, external rotation and internal rotation. So you have the freezing stage that's going to last for about 6 months. Again, more chronic pain, more significant limitations in motion. You have the frozen stage. This is why I hate, honestly, this is why I hate frozen shoulders.
Calm down.
At this point,
no. Hate it. I'd be angry.
Get them shoulders.
At this point, we're at 9 months, to a year and a half, right? That's nuts. And then typically at 15 to 24 months, you get to this thawing phase where you get less pain and more of a progressive improvement in range of motion. So that's a little bit of the background. Don't worry, there's no test.
Like demographic predisposition, still like females more than males, right?
Yep, correct. Looking generally at 40 to 65 years of age.
Yep.
And a much higher incidence, anywhere from kind of 10 to 40% in the population with diabetes or thyroid disease.
So there's got to be, they're drawing some type of like metabolic correlation to it, I believe. But still,
correct.
Like you said, nobody's put their finger fully on it.
In comparison to the general population, where you'd say it's going to occur in like 2 to 5%. So, a factor of 5 to 8 in that metabolic population. So
yeah, it's always interesting, like, because you'll see the same thing with trigger finger, Dupuytren's, diabetes, and thyroid. Same deal, right? So
yeah,
it's interesting what the mechanism is and why so much higher incidence. That's crazy. Like I said, at the top end, 5% of the general population, 40% of the population with diabetes. That's crazy numbers. I always wonder that, it's always the first thing I ask the patients, history of diabetes, because I'm always curious.
Yep.
Doesn't necessarily affect my treatment too much. And it seems like it doesn't matter if it's necessarily type 1 or type 2 diabetes, as far as I know.
No.
Right.
No.
So 5% of the population or less. How often do you guys see it?
I would say not a ton, honestly.
Is it usually that idiopathic when you see it, or is that secondary typically?
I've had a little bit of combo of both. Yeah. I would say, honestly, for me, it's been about 50-50.
Yeah, chronic post-injury or something where they develop some disuse.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I find most of mine I see are idiopathic, but that's stemming from long history of, again, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, all those things. That's the patient population I work with, so it's always hard to tell what's going on there, but definitely just seems to be that general ache. They present, just start hurting, couldn't sleep on it anymore, doctor thought it was a rotator cuff issue, but imaging looked good, right? Imaging was all negative, and then it's just started tightening up. So that's typical presentation with patients I see. So I don't know if that's similar experience with you guys. And I don't know, like Jeremy, like you said, like it's so frustrating to try to tell somebody like, yeah, this thing might take 2 years.
2 years.
Like
what?
But the weird thing is there's not like a whole lot of research to necessarily support it, right? We just have looked at the research and said it takes 2 years, and this is kind of what we see. But there's probably not enough research out there to really like actually say this is like a true process
timeline
that you have to follow. And I always think that's interesting when we see patients, because I guess I don't know if I know USD top dogs down there. What was the view when you were in PT school about it? Yeah.
Well, when I came out, there was a lot of, I guess, theory behind utilizing continuous ultrasound as a way of deep heating the tissue and making the capsule more pliable as part of your approach. And obviously that's fairly debunked. And I can't say as I've ever really utilized that in the clinic either.
No, like when I was in school, it was we were focused heavy on the stages of it, and it's like, man, if it's freezing or frozen, like don't bother.
Yeah,
that was kind of what they told us.
Do you guys? I'm just going to ask you, do you believe in the stages?
I believe in tissue irritability. I guess is kind of what I look at. Manage those stages. I mean, there is fibrosis. I was just reading a study where if arthroscopically they go in, 100%.
That's how they graded it, right? That's how they diagnose it. Was like how tough the capsule was when you tried to penetrate it with an arthroscope.
Yeah. So I mean, like 100% of patients with frozen shoulder that they went in arthroscopically had this fibrosis of the capsule. So I mean, there is definitely a process that happens. I mean, we see it, but is that a process we can alter? I guess is where I'm still struggle with it, right? Like,
which is what I'm at. So then why would we, if you get a referral for frozen shoulder, why do you even treat
it? Because I do believe for some reason, something's affecting that tissue, right? It's not just because they have diabetes. Not everybody with diabetes gets this. And they don't typically get it in both shoulders at the same time. Right. So what's going on in that arm in this situation that's causing the body to be signaled to lay down fibrotic tissue in a healthy capsule? So for me, I don't necessarily believe in the stages, and I'm willing to try some things. And I've seen.
I'm being facetious because I agree with you. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a standard course of care. I think I've seen some people up to like 4 months with it. As you're tapering through, but certainly much faster than 2 years. I mean, if they came in and we truly believed it was going to be a 2-year process, I mean, what are we even doing? What's our job in that process?
Well, I would say probably management, right? Like, not that you're going to be like, hey, you're going to be in the clinic twice a week for 2 years, but at least, I don't know, like a lot of times you'll see, treatment options, right? Like you might just get like, I went to the ortho and gut injection, and like we'll see how it does. And so like that interaction, like I look at that in a lot of cases. You're like, well, what do we expect from the patient then? If we're just like, well, we're saying it doesn't necessarily have to be a 2-year plan of care or a 2-year course of the
disease,
disease, but yeah, but then it's like, well, that's what they're getting from the surgeon, and then we're just like, well, it's going to be a long time. Sorry, I mean, I think we have a lot to do, at least to educate and give that person some tools.
Well, I think we have a lot of tools manually that we can apply to them, like as far as rhythmic range of motion, followed up with like some mulligan based stuff, like after you more rhythmically but progressively and aggressively stretch their capsule, gain some of that mobility, then throw in some like mulligan based mobilization with movement, get them to retrain into the firing pattern. And I'm not saying we can restore them all the way to 180 by any means, but I think we can get them close to like the 150s, 160s can be a
functional motion.
The one thing that I wrote down is that I think that weakness is definitely something that persists longer just due to the long-term disuse. And in therapy, we're so focused on regaining range and really getting that to adhere and stick.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think we can have fairly decent outcomes with this stuff if we know what we're doing and we're consistent with it.
Yeah,
I agree. And when you talk about the motion being restored versus function and strength, if you look at Reeves at a 5-year follow-up, right, like 7% of people still having those limitations. Another study, 11% still having limitations after 7 years. So that's the problem. It isn't the motion. Like you get it back, but how do we get these people using their arm again comfortably with confidence? And I always wonder that too with the stages. Did our poor management of it for the last 20 years cause some of that too, right? I mean,
just ultrasounding it. Yeah.
and really aggressive stretching. I think that was kind of the, like, don't let it freeze up. You got to stretch the heck out of it. Like, see them, like, I remember orthos being like, see them every day, see them 5 days a week, like try to keep it,
especially if they manipulate it.
Right? I would argue, but I've seen good, now with fibrotic knees, I've seen good outcomes with people who've had to go in and done a manipulation, and then we come in and we do like 5 days a week for like 1 week. And then taper it down. I mean, I can understand that theory, and I think I've personally seen good results that way. Maybe we got to think about Jeremy's heard me say this for years. Like, as a therapist, I think we get kind of predictable and maybe a little lazy in our POCs, and just like 2 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, whatever. But writing things out with using some of our experience as a guide too, and being able to say, okay, this first week I'm going to see you 4 or 5 times because we need to mobilize this early and we need to do it often. Now, I do agree with that, as long as it's more of a rhythmic approach where you're taking them to end range, backing off, taking them to end range, back off, and you're applying some maybe associative joint gliding to it. But I don't like static stretching. I feel all you get is kind of maybe I'll say rebound muscle firing, muscle tension that goes along with it.
Well, and I think you get a lot more post-operative swelling with long static holds at end range, which again, now you're creating a higher inflammatory response to tissue that's already laying down poor, unhealthy tissue for what that joint's supposed to be able to handle. So are we signaling it now to lay down more fibrosis? Like, we've been moving the heck out of it. You better tighten down more because we don't want to move. Whatever that signal was that was telling it, like, prevent this motion, you don't like this motion, and then we do a ton of this motion for a long time and create some irritation. I'm the same. I like a lot of rhythmic within comfort range, keep that motion up, keep them comfortable, keep their body moving in a functional range. For me, that's, I think, a lot better way to go about it, unless you're looking at really low irritability tissue. If it's really low irritability, then maybe you can do some.
That's where I was going to say you'll have a little bit of value with it then, I think. But
that total end range time stretching with really low irritability tissue, I think that's about the only time I would statically stretch somebody in this case.
Yeah. Or just give them to.
And then you slap Ionto on them.
Cut it down. Needle it up, I onto it down. That's my
Yeah,
rule.
let's go.
I'm not saying I won't needle a cuff. It helps with some of that firing.
Well, like you said, if you have a ton of muscle guarding because it hurts, dress the tissue around it to allow them to then go home.
It's a pretty damn
comfort
dynamic
range of motion.
Pretty dynamic structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not the glenohumeral joint's not operating on an island.
No.
I mean, you need the scapulothoracic complex, you need T-spine mobility. So anything you could do to help create some associated joint gliding, I think that helps.
Yeah.
You know, it's just again, you got to get creative and you got to explore and look beyond just the site itself. I mean, that's nothing new.
Yeah. And I think just like you said, not cookbooking someone and really assessing their tolerance and seeing how it felt when they went home, how it feels the next day, and make sure you're adjusting to that and make sure you're dosing high enough or cutting back
on this population too. And I've done this with some other ones like total knees and stuff, where for their home program, I'm not prescribing something like once or twice per day. I'm doing like, hey, every hour on the hour, you're going to maybe do 10 reps going this way, just to get very rhythmic, more active assistive using some PVC or dowel or whatever, but maintaining what we just worked so hard on.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty judicious on asterisk signs with them too, just constantly like tracking that range of motion to making sure that, hey, are we making a difference or are we not?
Yeah.
Because that stuff does shine a light into it.
Yeah. I think the regional approach, like you said, like, whether it's hitting scapular mobs or hitting T-spine extension, T-spine rotation to try to get whatever we can, like you are going to probably hit, I would say like, maybe I'm just a crappy therapist. I don't know that I'll get to like 150, 160, right away, but I'm like, gosh, if I can get them to 120 to 140, and then educate the heck out of them, like just again, can get into my cupboard, right? I can,
you can get a lot done that way.
So, but then like you said, with the asterisk signs, then, again, I think that allows us to, really evaluate, is what we're doing helping?
Yeah.
Are we sitting at the same range of motion for 9 weeks and then just saying, well, just gotta wait until it thaws out?
Yeah, you have to
shitty therapy.
Yeah, you have to de-educate this population to go, look what you gained, and look what you can do. Keep doing it, because you need to be optimistic about your movement and your function, not so pessimistic about like, oh, I woke up and it's a little stiffer today. Now I'm just going to keep losing that motion. It's like, nope, you know what you need to do, like work on your things. You'll gain that motion back. Like it's a slow thing. But it's not a 2-year freezing, frozen, thawing thing. Like keep your motion and keep moving.
You're right. And that's a good way to like kind of educate them at that point. Because I have now that as we talk about it, I got more memories like flooding in, and I remember one patient in particular who regained some pretty steady range of motion, but she was very frustrated by the pain that was still kind of associated. But it's a matter of saying, hey, I know when you came in and I met you, you had pain pretty much all the time. With any direction of movement, you were only able to elevate it to like 55 degrees of flexion, so to speak, maybe 60, 65 abduction. And now here we are, we're operating 120, 130, 140. And yeah, you get some pain when you get up there, but you're much better off than where you were.
Pain's a liar, man.
Continue to make this, yeah. And then maybe we do got to add in, I mentioned persistent weakness, but maybe we got to add in a little strengthening before fully restoring range of motion on this population to help them be more functional.
Yeah,
that's another thing, because that as we're talking, I'm thinking like, yeah, sometimes those first like 40, 50 degrees come kind of quick, but then to try to get them beyond that, it's like kind of like a stall point. Yeah. And regionally, get after them dirty lats, baby.
I guess I'm a believer in strengthening within the motion you have. I guess, I know some people think like you got to restore full motion, full kinematics before you do strengthening, but I guess I go on the be optimistic about the movement you have. I think you can strengthen within those ranges, and there's no rule that you can't continue to get better motion and better kinematics as time goes on. Yep. We've all watch the Special Olympics and see people do amazing things through less than
the range that they have
of motion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think it kind of depends on the diagnosis though too. I agree with you for most populations, but I think a caveat would be like a serious tendon injury where, then you're loading it maybe a little early, a little often, maybe too fast. And then you create, again, going back to the inflammatory response, it sets them back.
Nick,
Yeah,
we're still going to be safe when we're doing it.
Yeah, surgery is always a different beast, right? I mean, you do have to respect tissue healing. I mean, that's
correct.
Yeah. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I promise we will.
Yeah. Any doctors listening, I won't load them up right away. You got 10 degrees.
You learned your lesson.
You got 10 degrees after your rotator cuff surgery. Here's 15 pounds. You can do it at those 10 degrees. That'll be fine. Listen to your body.
I'm still shaking my head at the fact this guy walked out of your practice and then thought he tore his quad.
Yeah.
Thought he tore his patellar tendon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's I didn't load that guy up. So contrary to what I just said.
Lesson learned. I'm gonna load everyone up for now.
No, that won't always turn out well for you, Jeremy.
He's not just a no-dak cowboy.
My Carhartt's in the clinic. Oshkosh bagosh is on the weekends.
So have you guys seen a lot of post-surgical patients?
I've only ever seen one post-surgical manip from a frozen shoulder.
I've seen a couple of releases. Yeah.
I've seen a handful of manips, and then probably more since we've been out here where people are trying to do releases, and I don't know that it was the best outcome.
But
I mean, for me, it was that thing Nick said where he wanted me to see him every day for 7 days. And I would say, I don't know if the motion was a whole lot better when it was all said and done than before the manip either. I mean, they had, they did have range of motion right away. So I guess now in reflection, I guess I got to ask myself again, if I think it's an adhesive capsule and they went in under manipulation, brought through full range, and they had full range, why did they lose the range again within a week's time? Or, so I guess now in retrospect, I got to think about, what the mechanism there was, right?
Is that neurodynamics?
Yeah. I mean, how much of it, and this was an interesting case because this, I don't think this would get me in trouble, but the patient ended up having a pretty serious disease that ended her life within 6 months later on.
Wow.
So, and that, I guess I lied. That one was not, that was a secondary one from an arm fracture, but that was probably the only one I've seen that was secondary. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on there. So, but that was interesting to see, because you would think under manipulation, if you had full motion and you got to it, it shouldn't like adhese back up in 7 days.
Yeah.
I mean, the body doesn't lay tissue down that quick.
On that point, I did write that. I didn't think the overall outcome was very different from, conservative care.
Yep.
But I did make a note though. I'm like, in any of these cases, I never saw the person preoperatively. So I don't know where they were at, before that.
Gotcha. Was your course of care that same deal where you saw them quite a bit right away and then tapered off quick, or?
No, not under capsular releases.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I was thinking manipulation.
The manipulations were the knees. I haven't really seen too many shoulders after manips, honestly. And they say that's the research is pretty sketchy on that too, with so many structures you could potentially damage, doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess
you could bend a whole lot of body parts to extreme ranges as long as somebody's completely under anesthesia. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people going away from manips even at the knee, I guess locally. I don't know if that's trend you guys see, but it's been a long time since I've seen a manip, and the guys doing it are the old orthos.
No.
Arthroscopic surgery is never going to catch on.
Yeah, just to breed that, I guess. Maybe that's what they want to do.
Too technically demanding.
Yeah, way easier to knock somebody on, huh?
Yeah. I heard that that was less than 5 years ago. Got to go back to mini opens. So
maybe. Well, any final thoughts on this, on frozen shoulder?
I still don't like it. This is by far my least favorite population to treat. I mean, it's just tough. I mean, it's tough on that. I think on that education standpoint, to get somebody to buy into that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a real challenge for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's all about changing the narrative. I think from a therapy standpoint and from patient standpoint, like understanding tissue irritability and laying tissue down and mechanism, and like we have to find a way to break that cycle a little bit. And I don't know if we're there yet. Looking at practice guidelines and things, it's still pretty broad out there. Yeah.
I know this is low. I'm gonna kind of disagree with you, Jeremy. Only because it's low hanging fruit, and most of the time, by the time the patient arrives and they're familiar, they've done some research on frozen shoulder. I mean, their expectations are incredibly low, almost to the point of like, in some cases, why am I here? What good are you going to do? And then being able to surprise them in a positive way is pretty cool.
See, I've had people on the other end of the spectrum where they're just like, yep, I just got referred to PT for this. They don't have any type of expectations on it, and they're expecting to be better in like a month. Like they're ready to get back, so.
So in those cases, you diagnose them with frozen shoulder?
No, they'll just come with, like, they'll see an ortho for, they might see their family practice, they go see their ortho for 5 minutes, and then they come back with a script. Yeah. Yep. So
yeah, that is one thing I'll say about this too, is like a lot of times I get like subacromial pain syndrome or rotator cuff related pain syndrome patients that come in with the diagnosis of like a freezing shoulder. And that can be tough too, to like try to educate and, try to do that differential diagnosis for them and show them, passively, you got good motion, right? You're just losing your active motion. Like, it's probably not a frozen shoulder. And how do you have that conversation when the ortho already told them it's a frozen shoulder and they Googled it? And, even though the presentation isn't necessarily frozen shoulder, but I see
that's a
that.
win, baby. Just
they're going to get better, but.
And then you're like, hey, fixed up your frozen shoulder so fast.
Yeah, those ones.
Do you know most of these take 2 years to heal?
Yeah, and yours got better in 6 weeks on normal tissue healing.
Yep. I accept gift baskets, meat trays, meat and cheese trays.
Anything edible that's not poisoned.
That's a strange one.
Imagine
a strange diagnosis.
Frozen shoulders on Groot.
Yeah,
those suckers.
Yeah. I just said strange diet. Yeah. So in honor of Dr. Strange. What? All right. On to the top 5. Maybe we got more meat on the bone with this one. Top 5 movies that we enjoyed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Can't include Sony films. Has to be the MCU, which I believe, was kicked off officially with Iron Man 1, if you go back.
Correct.
I believe that would be the rule.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yep.
I'm thinking timeline order, I'm not thinking.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys deep. I love it.
You guys got a lot of knowledge.
Today, too,
I watched them all. I've watched them all.
Whoa.
Jeremy's passionate about this too, so he gets to go last. We don't want to. He gets to kind of hit the nail in the coffin. But yeah, Doctor Strange 2 comes out. I think it comes out. I think it dropped tonight. You can go see some showings.
Ooh, that's a
good
place to fall asleep.
Yeah,
I love that.
You guys, you're not going to do a midnight showing.
Yeah, bring a blanket. Hit the floor.
Ironically, we talked midnight showings. So the very last midnight showing I ever did was the first Avengers movie. So that was obviously in the MCU.
Holy moly, you were like an old man at that point. Where do you go to midnight shows at that age?
He dressed up like Captain America.
Yeah, I did. No, I struggled so bad. I actually took off work the next day. We were doing it coincided.
I don't blame you, man. Anytime I have to be up past about 9:30, I take PTO the next
day. it coincided with like the annual rummage sale down here, so Michelle was running that, and I was going to help her out. So we're like, it was actually more of an organic situation where it was like, well, we're both taking the day off, and then
we're on the fence about footy pajama.
Yeah, you got Wonder Woman. No, not Wonder Woman. Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, this is not my strong suit today. So
well, and how about you kick us off?
I would love to kick us off today. So yeah, I guess this one's kind of weird. So you said no Sony ones, but there was this weird period where Spider-Man's in the MCU, right?
Well, so, yeah, Tom Holland. Everything with Tom Holland would apply, and then the newest one.
Yes. Isn't the newest one Sony?
No. So well, they're joint ventures, but they're in the MCU.
So I wasn't 100% sure where you'd sit with this one, Nick, but I went with it anyways. So it's the newest one, Spider-Man No Way Home, at my number 5. I really enjoyed the Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. Andrew Garfield, not so much. So this was kind of cool. I like the Tom Holland Spider-Man. He's fun. I thought the interaction was cool. The story's kind of not great. The pacing's not great. There was a lot of problems with the movie. Why I wouldn't put it higher on my list, but like all the actors are just awesome in this movie, and they all did a good job. They all seemed like they wanted to be there. Nobody was cashing it in, really. It was tongue in cheek. It was fun, but super emotional at the end. I mean, I thought Tobey Maguire was just unbelievable. I mean, that's just cool performance. He
good
just
for
felt
Tobey.
Like yeah, I mean,
good for Tobey to be back in. Throw him on a bone.
And I gotta say, it kind of made me go back and like realize how much I kind of liked Andrew Garfield's take too. Like, he's just charming. He was the funny Peter Parker. He was
like next to tears the whole time though.
Well, yeah, he was happy to have work again. Like
she was my Gwen.
First movies.
But
yeah, give the guy a break, Nick. I mean, I'm ecstatic. I mean,
but I'm a Tobey guy for real. I mean, and then so the first, actually, interesting footnote, Spider-Man was the very first movie that Michelle and I took her to in a movie theater.
Oh, she's your Mary Jane.
She's a Mary Jane.
She is. She's my Mary Jane.
I fell asleep during Spider-Man 3 at a midnight showing also, so
it
holds a special spot in my heart.
Just saying.
So that's my number 5, Spider-Man. No Way Home.
Good flick. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it too. You're right. I got one that's a little convoluted too, and I think that's what you're getting at with this one. It's just they're trying to throw a lot in there, right?
Yeah, they jammed everything.
Interdimensional stuff
in there, you know.
Yeah. My number 5, pretty straightforward. I love this movie very much, and it's one of my warm takes. Captain America: First Avenger, not Winter Soldier. I'm very few times. I'm kind of burnt out on origin stories. Like, I don't need to see Batman's origin story anymore in my life. I know what happened to Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Well, spoilers, easy, Nick.
Yeah. But Captain America: First Avenger, it's such a great story. You see him, you know, who he was before, and there's so many great lines kind of just laying out his character by the great Stanley Tucci. I mean, he's pretty fantastic in there, playing Dr. Abraham Erskine.
He's great in everything he does.
I don't know about that. I think sometimes he overacts.
No,
he looks like a mini. He's like a mini Jeremy with glasses.
Maybe I should have pulled one of his lines for the intro. I'm sorry.
Underrated Tommy Lee Jones role.
Dang it.
And final point I'll make, since this is my pick. You're only as good as your villain. And Red Skull is a very underrated villain. I think the performance by Hugo Weaving is awesome. I'm a sucker for German accents, and it's all there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And
special delivery.
Good flick. I'm also a World War II kind of nerd too. So I mean, it fits in with that. It hits on a lot of different angles for me. So that's my number 5. Captain America: First Avenger, 2011.
Didn't like it at all, if I'm being honest.
What?
Yeah, it's not your list.
You're a big DC guy.
I'm not a DC guy. Two things. I'm not a history buff.
You were watching the Tomahawk movie. What is it?
Yeah, I was watching Bone Tomahawk for the 25th time. Way better movie.
Saw the final chapter.
Oh, there's so many needles.
Not a history guy. I felt like it took way too long. And yeah, I think Captain America's just. I'm a Marvel guy, and he's probably one of my least favorite Marvel superheroes. So
we're done.
just like,
but that's what makes
that's
what makes this dynamic fun, because we can disagree,
Yeah.
if you're wrong,
and still be friends, even if you're wrong.
He's like the garbage Superman of the Marvel universe.
Oh, get out of here!
You're cutting me deep. Gabe.
You're hurting me. You're hurting me.
You guys are
My
both
son,
Superman guys too.
No.
Okay.
Superman?
Yeah.
No,
I'm okay, but I'm okay with Superman. I mean, I think he gets a lot of hate.
Yeah.
There's no good Superman besides Dean Cain.
You shut up. Shut the hell up. Christopher Reeves?
Christopher Reeves is the one. Anyways, I'm gonna go to my
Jeremy. Cleanse this palate.
So you guys should get a kick out of this one. My number 5 is Ant-Man.
Okay.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah. Because I get told, like, I bet I've been told like 7 or 8 times, like, I'm a Yellow Jacket look-alike.
Yep. Corey Stoll, right?
Yeah, yep. So, and there's a lot of good one-liners in there, I think. So, yeah, that's my number 5.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into, like, how many weeks it was at number 1. Probably never was, or the pacing of it, but I like it.
arguably the best action sequence when they do the close up of the trains and then they zoom out. It's just Thomas the train crashing off.
Yeah, I like that movie. For me, that was a fun movie.
It's fun. Paul Rudd's a fun guy. I mean, he's hard. He's hard to not like.
Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah, it would be fun to see him in a role where he has to be unlikable. I'd be curious.
I think he's better when he gets to play off each other people. He's some of the best parts of like Civil War and the later Avengers movies where he's just kind of like a fan himself and it comes out. I mean, that's just kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
All right. My number 4, which is maybe higher up on other lists, but it's Avengers Endgame. Be my number 4. Obviously it was the culmination of lots of stuff, but for me, I don't do well with super long movies, and I don't do well with like 40 different things happening at once. And so I appreciate the storyline, I appreciate the acting. There's some cool scenes. I cried. I mean, when Iron Man, spoiler alert.
You cried. See, you do have a heart.
Here's the deal. I didn't cry when he died. I was like, good for him, he deserved it. But later on, like when they're at and I've only seen this movie once, so again, I apologize, I'm probably gonna brutalize this, but like at his funeral, he has like a video, right, of him, like, because he's like, I'm probably already dead, and he's says the I love you 3000 or whatever to his daughter. Like that, I started to tear up. I mean, that was pretty strong. That caught me off guard.
I'll give you that.
I was like, ooh. So that whole end sequence there is kind of what sold me. Yeah,
allergies again.
I'm dusty in this theater. Just sleep eyes. I've been sleeping for 2 hours.
Tough when you're sleeping on the floor.
Yeah,
you figure the dust would like
Mountain Dew
and
butter.
And all that.
So yeah, that's my number 4, Avengers Endgame. There was just way too much going on for me to put it up higher. I know people love it, but
it is a busy flick.
Too busy for me, but I can appreciate everything that culminated, and it is cool. It was an event. I did stay awake for the whole thing, even though it was like 4.5 hours. So,
or 3, but
felt like
let's just multiply it by 150%. That's okay.
That's how I do everything. Sounds cooler.
Yep. Sounds like your research on every one of our therapy topics.
What?
All right. All right, so my number 4 is a total revision of the character. No surprise here, Thor Ragnarok 2017. Arguably some of those boring MCU films are the first 2 Thor flicks. I think everybody kind of recognizes that. I don't hate them, but they're certainly not the best. They're far from the best. Yeah. So when Taika Waititi came in and like threw this comedic element to it, and then you realize how funny Chris Hemsworth is. I mean, it fits. I mean, and it hits, and still have a good message, still have some good, kind of overall tones and thematic elements there, but the humor really carries the movie, and they're able to make some of the situational comedy work. They dust off Jeff Goldblum and jumpstart his career again. Fantastic flick. Lots of fun. Don't know what else to say. So that's my number 4, Thor Ragnarok.
Only Thor I've seen. So
well, you started off well.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. It was not what I expected at all because I had no idea why they were in space. I was like, why are they on this thing?
By the time
it was good, so I watched it.
Well, that one, by the time that one picks up, it's like you have to watch like Avengers Age of Ultron, right? Because that's kind of where it picks up after that.
Probably. And again, when I say I've seen like 20 of these movies, I have not watched them in any sort of order. I watched Captain America First Avenger for the first time like 2 months ago. So it's scattered. It's scattered in my order.
Dude,
sure.
Get on Disney Plus. They have them all in order. Boom, boom, boom.
You can just watch them. Just bang it out.
Right in order. Right in order.
It.
They even throw in like some of the TV shows in there too. I mean, it's just you get a lot of history in there.
It's too much commitment. I just can't do it. I have Disney Plus.
Well, that's a start.
Yeah. I just can't commit. I don't want people to tell me I have to watch a movie to enjoy these other movies. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Watch what I want.
We all just learned a lot about you.
You're just not having any fun with this top 5.
I am having a wonderful
Here we are. Jeremy and I are just
5.
gleefully dancing through the MCU, crapping over top of it.
I am trying to add a different point of view from you two fanboys. So I'm sorry.
Endgame, the highest grossing film of all time.
Number 5.
Number 4, if you
It's
remember
sorry.
correctly.
Too convoluted.
4 out of 27. That's pretty good. I don't know what else you guys want.
It's top 5. Top 5.
That means it's a good movie.
All right.
We teased this earlier. My number 4 is Iron Man 2. I do think that was a good flick. Honestly, yes.
I do. It's not that bad, but
it's not that bad. And man, Robert Downey Jr. is probably my favorite MCU character, hands down. I think, like, he's hilarious, great sarcasm. Mickey Rourke he was not a bad villain.
I agree too.
I like the take on like him just like kind of stealing the arc reactor technology and just like being a beast and cutting cars in half.
That's an awesome sequence. That race car scene. Yeah, the Formula One. Yeah,
cuts his Bentley in half. The guy get the little suitcase suit out. So,
yeah, back before he could just like digitally turn into it, he had to assemble. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my jam, number 4. I think it's underrated. So
I
loved it. It was a great movie.
I think they really cut it free.
No, I'm kidding. I've never seen it. Nick just yelled at me for shitting on movies. It looked terrible. I refused to watch it.
It's not that bad. And I think to your point, Jeremy, I think it's the one where they really he showed some glimmers back in the first Iron Man, but I think it's in that one where they really let him cut free on his humor.
Yeah.
All those scenes like where he's talking to Congress. He kind of just owns that,
Yep.
The smart ass element.
Yep, I agree. Casey, we're all on the edge of our seat.
Number 3 from a well-informed perspective.
He's gonna be like, Venom.
Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Batman: The Dark Knight. My number 3, Captain America: Civil War.
Whoa.
Not bad.
Probably not a lot of people's favorite Captain America movie, but I thought it was cool. Spider-Man's probably my favorite non-X-Men superhero in the Marvel universe. So like that moment when he comes in, that was super cool. I like the superheroes fighting each other, laid some pretty funny moments out, a lot of good tension though too. So I thought the movie, even though it was a lot going on, kept a good pace. I felt like it was a little more frantic. The fight at the airport or the abandoned hangar scene, whatever that is, cool fight, and again, I thought it was cool with Spider-Man just kind of coming on the scene, no real experience, and like keeping pace with these guys, because Spider-Man's badass. Like he was unexpected, and it was a cool movie. I really enjoyed that movie. The only thing that bothered me a little bit is I'm more of a comic book nerd, and I've read Civil War, and definitely not the same storyline. So I had that little bit burning.
Read it?
Burning in the yes, I read the Civil
That's
War.
impressive.
I watched it and read it. Yep.
In a book.
Yeah,
Great movie. Great movie.
Yeah, so that's
good villain too. I mean, good different villain. Baron Zemo.
Yeah, I prefer my Baron Zemo like pink tights or purple tights and yellow stripes, but whatever. I'm a comic book guy.
Because he was playing around with a super adhesive and he glues a mask to his face.
Yeah,
that is it.
My
That's his origin story.
Hat. Yeah, I mean, comic books that's a simpler time.
Hey, so did you watch? I know you said you have Disney Plus. Did you watch? What is it? Falcon and Winter Soldier.
No,
yeah.
Keep going.
Because he comes back in that.
Yes,
and he even wears the mask.
He does.
Oh dang! Maybe I should watch it
for like one episode, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember like the old Marvel. Man, was it Infinity Wars toys from the 80s where they had like the holograms with them? Like I had a Baron Zemo. He was one of my favorite from that collection.
Baron Zemo. He was like a super villain too. He was like Captain America's biggest adversary, aside from Red Skull.
Yeah, and from I think from a toy standpoint, they didn't necessarily care for the Nazi Red Skull angle. So Baron Zemo was the guy.
They're gonna lose. They're the bad guys.
Yeah, it's still. Yeah, probably not a good look as a toy manufacturer.
yeah, Hasbro, I think, stepped away from that a little bit. Yeah, how about we do the stocking hat guy instead? He seems better.
Yeah, glued to his face.
But you know what? Hats off to you. Very good film. Very good.
Like makes all of mine on my top 5. Thank you.
Excellent choice.
And let's just make the note right now that Captain America was right and he won. So just got to point that out.
Yeah, just like Superman, like he's gonna win every time, and it's boring. And
because he was right. He was right. It's about freedom, baby.
Yeah, it's a good story. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, how good's that scene at the end where he like holds up his shield, and you think he's not gonna decapitate him, but and then he drives it into like the arc reactor. I mean, that's just a pretty great dramatic scene. But that's also equally badass when Tony like blows off Winter Soldier's arm too. I mean, that's
there's some cool moments. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. Stayed up for the whole thing.
Good for you. Take a couple Xenadrines. The original model.
Yeah, I still got them in my pocket from 30 years ago.
2002.
They never get old. They just get better with age.
Very good, Kate. Good number 3. My number 3 is my other little warm take. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I prefer it over number 1. And I know that number 1 is highly popular. I totally understand why. I really enjoy that movie. It's not about like thinking that one's not good. To me, Volume 2, I took my son to it, our oldest son, Connor. There's so many elements that are like father-son. I mean, that's the whole theme of the movie in different levels, in different ways. It hits a ton of levels with me on that regard. And I think Kurt Russell makes a really fantastic villain as Ego. Again, going back to like movie really only being as good as your villain. And he kind of nails that. He's got a weird, galaxy dominating plan that's real bad. And some good emotion, some good acting out of Chris Pratt. Like when he realizes, like, I mean, just there's certain moments that give you almost like negative goosebumps where Ego tells him that he put a tumor in his mom's brain, and he kind of realizes that he's the one that killed his mom. I mean, those are good, impactful moments within the film. And again, the soundtrack is fantastic because James Gunn's gonna just do that. So just great.
Yeah, great soundtrack. I'd agree.
Big fan. Very funny movie. I think Dave Bautista's underrated as Drax, just in all of his like straightforward, dry humor. I think it's very good.
It's a pretty movie. I will say that. My wife watches zero Marvel movies, and I had it on. She's like, "This looks good. This is a nice looking movie." I was like, "Yeah, movie itself sucks, honey. Don't worry."
It does not. Shut up, Casey. It does not
Oh,
suck.
come on. There is like the few good emotional moments. I feel like Chris Pratt ruined them. I don't think he did a very good job in acting in that movie. I don't think he was emotional at
Wow.
all. Yeah, I
I
like
think you-
Chris Pratt.
I think you gotta
Yeah.
appreciate the MCU for what it is, right? Like it's not ever gonna be like Shakespearean acting. I mean, it's not. I don't know. At least my take.
I would agree with you. So I don't know why they try to force these moments in these movies because they bother me. They take me out of them. Like let's have fun.
Whatever.
Like
So
will
when he
say,
said when he admits that when he kind of does the villain turn, because you
Yep.
kind of knew it was going to happen anyways.
right,
But when
there
he
had to be
finally like
something.
when he tells him and he's like, you know, too bad I had to put that tumor in where you didn't feel anything, and you're like, God, what an asshole! Like
Oh, I was
such
like,
a
that
shitty
dude's
thing to do.
a total asshole. And then Chris Pratt's like, I don't know what to do with these levels of emotions in a movie. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a movie.
Whatever.
Here's
He
the
has that
deal.
great line, you shouldn't have killed my mom and smashed my Walkman.
All right. And
Real
that's
talk.
like I would expect that line from that movie, and that's fine. It was all the other stuff. I also teared up during this movie. I will say that.
Okay.
When the Smurf dude dies, that was sad. What's his name? Xanadu?
Yondu. Yondu.
Yeah, when he died, that was sad. And I feel like he had the acting ability to do that, and they put him in a good moment to do it, and they built it up. And that was good. I like that part.
And you realize he was like, I mean, that's that whole dynamic element.
He was his real dad. Super sad.
Yeah, he really was. He was his he was true dad.
So they did a great job. That like 10 minutes of that movie was awesome.
Oh, shut up.
It's
It's a good movie.
Agree to disagree.
Fine. That's my number 3.
That's a good choice, Nick. I liked it. It's a good movie. Jeremy, what do you got?
My number 3 is actually Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Man, I do like. I mean, this echoes half what Nick was saying. Not necessarily like the sad acting piece of it, but I think in terms of like you said, Drax and Bradley Cooper's voice. I mean, like it's just like an awesome cast. I think it's more, much more fun and upbeat than a lot of the other Marvel movies, and just like bar none, the soundtrack like kills it. So
it reminds you like that was,
and I like Quill too.
Oh, you mean Yondu?
Yeah, Xanadu.
Wasn't
Yondu has the
was that him? He was in Quill?
Yeah, he kills like 30 dudes with that thing. It's sweet.
That's in part 2.
No, is it?
Yeah. When Baby
seen
Groot busts him out and he kills all those Ravagers with his whiskey, and they're playing it to that old song from the 50s. God dang, I'm blanking right now.
Who's the guy? No, is that Yondu?
That's Yondu.
But he's got it in the first one though too.
He controls it. He's got that.
That's
it. He's got like fake metal mohawk thing that he puts in his head, and that controls
now
the
I'm mistaken. Yeah, well, I like that guy. So.
It's Come a Little Bit Closer. That's the song that they play it to, and it's just those are so cool. Like, and he's just murdering like 35, 40 guys with it.
Was that really in 2?
That was in 2.
Well, maybe I should have.
Come a little bit closer.
Then I guess maybe it should have been number 2 then.
But he threatens people with it in number 1 though, right? I mean, he has that.
He does kill some guys.
Is he not?
He does, yeah, and he kills some guys at the end of it.
Yeah, that's the scene I'm thinking of. Because like the first one, he's got the like just the red piece, and the second one he gets the full mohawk,
the
like
big one,
comic books, right? Because people bitched about that he didn't have his mohawk thing.
Yeah.
Well, his metal needed time to grow. So.
Yeah, is that how that works?
Yeah, but
I don't know. He just needed Baby Groot to steal it for him.
Yeah, I like Chris Pratt. I think he's funny, even though he doesn't get to Casey's level of acting. I like him a lot.
I like him. He's a good dude too.
I think he's great in the roles that he does most of the time. My number 2 is Guardian of the Galaxy, the first one.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was a perfect vehicle for him. It was funny. He was a jerk. He was an a-hole, and he played that role perfectly. I also like that because, like I said, I hate that the rest of the movies up to that point kind of felt like, oh, it's all this part of the, oh, you missed Captain America, you don't understand Avengers. You missed Avengers, you don't get this little part of Ant-Man. Where I felt like Guardians of the Galaxy at that point, when it came out anyways, was pretty self-contained. Like you had to know nothing pretty much to really enjoy that movie. There's lots of Easter eggs, I'm sure. But I went into it, you know, with like, okay, like being a comic book guy, besides Captain America, I would say Guardians of the Galaxy was the other heroes I thought was like one of the worst comic books of all time. So it was interesting to go to the movie because my expectations were super low. Because again, if you read the original Guardians of the Galaxy comic books, they weren't very good. They were not likable characters. But they turned it around in the movie and I thought made it awesome. There wasn't like a bad scene in that movie. It was tight. I felt like it ran really tight. I liked everything about it. So that's my number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy. Chris Pratt. He's a treat.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, but you guys have to admit, probably one of the weaker villains in the MCU. Ronan with his big sledgehammer.
Yeah, and I guess I don't always need a villain like you do to make a good movie. He was inconsequential to that movie for me. It's probably, I would agree, the worst part of the movie, but it didn't ruin it for me at all.
I don't know. I disagree. I think you need it. I think you need an antagonist. You need to overcome in a superhero movie. Okay.
It helps.
All right.
I mean, I'm not going to say a great villain doesn't elevate, but there's good superhero movies without great villains. Batman Begins, solid movie. Villains are
Wrong universe.
Solid,
Wrong universe.
Solid, but it's like the worst of those 3.
No.
I mean, there you go. So
the third one with great villain Bane is the worst one.
Why does everybody love Dark Knight so much?
Yeah, like I said, a great villain is going to elevate a movie. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think you need one.
I disagree. I think if you don't have one, it's a weak film. Weakens it. All right. My number 2, and I really wrestled with this. And I'm gonna echo a little bit of what Casey said on this. My number 2 is Endgame, and I think it's so enjoyable on so many levels. It has some legitimate like goosebump scenes, such as when Cap picks up Mjolnir, and then when everybody comes back, from the dead and they assemble.
Goosies.
Just watch that scene, those 2 scenes with our youngest Baylor, just to kind of introduce him to it, and it still gave me goosebumps without watching the whole film. I mean, really good. Really great stuff. It spans a huge chunk of time, and the time travel element in a lot of ways works, but in some ways it's like it's a little jammed in there. And if they did an amazing job tying a bow on everything that they've done all these years and all these other films, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it was very tight. I don't think it's quite as tight as it could have been, and did get a little bit long. I'm not going to say I can't stand a 3-hour movie. I loved all the Lord of the Rings, but maybe could have been trimmed back just a little, maybe 10, 15 minutes out, just to keep it a little smoother, a little tighter. But otherwise, pretty damn fantastic film with lots of terrific scenes. And you finally, I think I've read this before, but Thanos was such a good villain, they got to kill him twice in there. So there you go. I mean, you get some bonus points for that too. So that's my number 2 is Endgame.
Does that mean he's a doubly good villain if he dies?
Probably. Probably. And I do think everything since then, they did such a good job with all those phases and wrapping things up there. It's everything after that just feels less than.
Correct.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed nothing from Marvel since Endgame, if I'm gonna be honest.
I don't think they put their best foot forward though either. I think they probably misfired on some of these plans and should have probably been putting, like, Thor Love and Thunder is going to come out in July, right?
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have waited a few years to do that. Or wait for Guardians 3.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're like, oh man, we have tried so hard. Let's take a few years off and just put filler out. And I don't know.
Let's introduce people to the Eternals. Yeah.
That's the worst out there.
Yeah, it's
that's the worst one they put out.
It's really taken my desire away. Like I said, I haven't I tried watching WandaVision. I tried Moon
Loki?
Knight.
Did you watch
You didn't like
Loki?
Moon Knight? Moon Knight's good. Loki's good.
I guess I'm not
Loki's
excited
good,
for
real
him.
good.
I wish I
Loki's
was
real
more
good.
excited for him, but they've just done nothing for me to like build the excitement. Maybe if the movies in between these series were good, but like Black Widow didn't excite me at all. I mean, it's
not a good
Black
film.
Widow was such a misfire too, and it sounds like a misogynistic thing to say that, you know, I know people can interpret it that way, but you already know how it ends for her.
Yeah.
And I think if they could have been setting up something like planting different seeds, and maybe they will. Maybe 5 years from now we'll look back. Oh, they did that in Black Widow, and that's where it all set up. But it was such a flat film,
I doubt it.
and it was anticlimactic. And Shang-Chi, I enjoyed that, but that's all it was. Pretty enjoyable film.
Yeah, just not
the
using good IPs right now. Just nothing to generate excitement, for me.
Yeah, I think they really, if they were really smart, maybe they could have done one of those films. Maybe reintroduce like a group or new one, and then your next release would be like Thor or Guardians 3, or something like that, so that you can keep everybody kind of going with at least some thread of that story.
Yeah,
it's gone on 3 years now. That's kind of crazy to think too. And I know COVID played a role in that. But.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it too, but it's just, it's too bad. I thought they did an awesome job up to Endgame. Contrary to all the crap I've been saying, it's generally I can appreciate what they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the other thing with that, like with Eternals, like how annoyed are you guys with this whole like they did the same thing with Captain Marvel, like hyper superpowered beings. It's like, oh great, where the hell were you guys like these last few years? And there's always some, oh, I was taking care of business, or I was told not to interfere. It's like, what the hell ever?
Is it in a different multiverse?
Like with Captain Marvel, when she's like, there's other stuff going on. You're like, really? More important than like 50% of the universe being killed? But you were busy. Okay.
Yeah.
But now you're here now, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they had set that up a little bit, being like, and
thank you.
Just shitty writing.
I haven't seen Captain Marvel, so I don't even know what happens in that. But hey, Galactus is like destroying these planets. You got to go and okay, at least set it up that way, so she's doing something.
They don't say anything. Captain Marvel takes place in the 90s.
Yeah, right.
And then she shows up in.
It's like a Top Gun sequel, is that right? I watched the beginning of it.
Yeah, there was pretty Top Gun in there. Yeah.
A lot of Top Gun. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad I didn't watch the rest of it then.
I digress. Go ahead, Jeremy. Number 2.
Now this movie already hit the list, and I'll probably get groans for it, but Captain America: First Avenger is my number 2.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah.
Because Casey is a bully.
No, it's kind of for the exact opposite reasons of Casey. Like, I'm such a nerd for history. I thought it was like, it's such a cool story too, right? Like, you just, the weak little kid, turns into Captain America, defeats the Nazis, right? I was such a nerd growing up. It was like the History Channel was basically the World War II channel. I think that was such a wild time in history where there was so much change in technology and like how war was fought in general.
Zafira,
I don't have to get into that.
Artifacts. Zafira. There's that sweet scene. I mean, like, the tension in the beginning when Red Skull pulls up, like Hugo's still like Hugo, but he shows up in Norway, and he goes to find the Tesseract, and I mean that's a great scene too, because they're building like some tension, and it just sets that tone,
So I don't know. I think it's cool, like little underdog story. I love the World War II time era, so that's my number 2. So
awesome.
It's a great choice.
Love it. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Casey.
We all want Casey's approval with our films. He's like, it's
Great
not
choice.
that bad. I think I could crawl across thousands of needles. I think I could win that.
I'd rather watch that scene.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's a lie. That is Captain America: First Avenger is way better than any Saw movie.
Thank you.
I will say
But
that.
by a little bit.
At least Casey gave us that one.
But I'd probably rather watch that scene than Chris Pratt and Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
What a
I
dick.
digress to my number one. It would be the first Iron Man. Is probably my favorite MCU movie. Now I will say it's a flawed movie. I understand that. And Nick, it's a terrible villain. I think
I like Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, I like him, but I think just him as a villain in that movie didn't do a whole lot for me. And again, that wasn't what the movie was about. It was just kind of a way to seal that movie up because, like, yeah, how is he so good at piloting this suit already? But I will say, just I came into Iron Man pretty low just because I came off of like X-Men 3, which sucked. I came off Spider-Man 3, which sucked.
You're forgetting Fantastic Four 2
and 1.
Silver Surfer. I mean, those all sucked.
Those all sucked. So as a comic book guy, I was kind of seeing like I was super excited with Spider-Man, right? Because people are like, comic book movies are viable. You're gonna see a ton of comic book movies. And then they were just
they greenlit a lot of shit.
Yeah, they started making a ton of stuff, right? And then like I said, these bunch of movies came out and they just were terrible and they were critic flops, and you started to see it affect the box office numbers too. And I'm like, crap, like this is probably the end of comic book movies. But I went to Iron Man, pretty low expectations. Because again, like the Incredible Hulk with like Eric Bana was garbage. So it's like
that was the Hulk.
Whatever.
Different movie.
Sorry.
He was
the
not
Hulk
incredible.
with Eric Bana was garbage. So like my bar was so low, and Robert Downey Jr. just like knocked this thing out of the park. And really, his career wasn't like like this huge name at that point either. You know, it was like, oh, you found a guy who's kind of washed up to do this superhero movie, and it's gonna be terrible like the rest of them. And the movie was fun, like start to finish. You know, I thought the ending, like I'm Iron Man, like just totally caught me off guard. I was like, oh, this is like something they're like really trying to put some effort into. And like the whole thing was cool. I didn't realize at that time what it was going to turn into, but every time I watch it still, I kind of get those goosebumps knowing that this is going to be the first of 27 films ending in Endgame or whatever, you know? So I still enjoy it, man. It's for me as a comic book nerd guy geek, this was the movie that just like made comic books. This movie didn't make comic books cool, but it started the path of like people loving comic book heroes, comic book movies. So holds a super special spot in my heart, and I think it's a fun movie.
Yeah, it is. And I think to your point on the villain, I like him as a villain, but in retrospect, when you look back after everything they've done since then, he does appear less than. But at the time, he's a perfect villain for it, and a perfect vehicle to kind of launch RDJ. You're right, man. As you were saying that, I mean, I forget about how that's probably what helped it, right? Expectations were so low.
Yeah, like rock bottom at that point. It almost felt like a throwaway. Like, oh boy, we probably already committed to this movie.
Do you remember the very first trailers for that when they dropped? It like before they were even doing that, like the visual effects weren't finalized. It looked crappy. And when you're thinking, you're like, man, they're not even trying anymore. This superhero stuff is pretty dead. You know, there were the grumblings about the Wolverine movie, which we've already talked about on here. But
it's very disappointing.
But yeah, you're also talking, you know, Ghost Rider. It had like 2 Ghost Riders by then, and those weren't very good. You know,
Blade
so I mean,
3, I think, was already out by then as well.
Correct. Yep.
So yeah, just every superhero movie that was coming out in that like 2006 to 2008 was just failing miserably.
Yeah.
I still enjoy them because I like comic book IPs, but
good stuff.
They definitely weren't cool. People were definitely losing interest. So this dude,
Iron Man
saved movies, man.
Yep. Really launched the MCU. All right, my number one, and I've debated this with my kids, is Infinity War 2018. I think it's a stronger film than Endgame in the fact that it does a better job of establishing the villain and maintaining tension throughout the whole thing. I think it brings, you get to see these characters being brought together for the first time. You know, you got the Guardians meeting up with Hulk and all that stuff. They fuse in humor too, which works. You know, Thor's aloofness plays with those guys like so well. And I mean, you got some great scenes in there too. And Thor finally gets Stormbreaker and then arrives back on Wakanda, kills off all these, you know, little whatever demons and things. But really good film that you know, peaks at the end, and when you leaves you wanting more, right? And I think that that's a great sign of a movie, and it leaves you a little upset because the bad guy won. But you knew that he wasn't going to last forever, and all that bull.
The battle, not the war.
Because it was initially, it was called, you know, when they filmed all of it, it was Infinity War 1 and 2. And they announced that, I think it was 2016, they announced that. And then within 3 months, they retconned it. And they were like, nope, they're two different movies, totally different movies. It's going to be, you know, whatever, Avengers, Infinity War, and then Avengers 4. And
it totally wouldn't have worked if it was Infinity War 1 and 2.
Yeah,
I would.
Well, they were. I think they've finally
I can
seen
agree
like
with that.
all those like Hunger Games. You know, remember Hunger Games did that, and they got diminishing returns off of it. Twilight did that, and people were like, "God, I'm not going to go see number 1." Because I'll maybe rent it and then I'll watch number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Agreed.
Totally enjoy the movie, and yeah, great stuff. Yeah. Captain America has a beard in it. Looks about as badass as he's ever been.
What? That's not my Captain America. I don't like that.
He's rugged and raw.
Oofta.
Yeah.
Oofta. Rugged?
Nice.
It's
nice.
What do you guys think?
Terrible visual.
We went in depth
Nice
about Raw last week.
That's why I'm redirecting quickly.
I'm going to go to my number 1.
Yeah. See how raw it is.
Please. Mine is Endgame. Man, you know, Nick, I can't like agree with any more of your points about Infinity War. But like it was such a great build to the end, right? And I think my favorite pieces to it. You're right. You guys are right. Like there probably could have been a little bit cut out of that movie. But in terms of when everybody comes together, like I do get goosebumps every time I see that. And I would say it was the end, right? Like they're saying like no more Captain America, no more Iron Man. I'm like, and I would agree with you guys, like the stuff that they've put out since, you know, Spider-Man was good. I'll give you that. But in terms of like, I would agree 10 Rings was like a pretty good standalone movie. Black Widow, not great. Just kind of the end of an era. So it'll be interesting to see like what, you know, what's Guardians 3 like, what's
Thor.
I lost it. Thor, yeah. What's it gonna be like? You know, and where do they go with it from here? And like will it still, you know, tie in together? I'm not a huge fan, like visually the Doctor Strange stuff is really, really cool. But I guess I'm not all that hyped on his character either. So
I agree on that. I really do. I think Doctor Strange might be the only MCU film like prior to Endgame, like in that window, that I never saw in the theater. But I like him. I really liked him and enjoyed him in like Ragnarok. I enjoyed him in the event like the Infinity War and Endgame. But standalone films, they're just I kind of agree. They get a little, there's a lot to unpack in them. And you know, the interdimensional stuff that they're really, you know, they're really leaning on that hard right now in the shows and in
multiverse.
And it just, I think it makes it messy though too. And it takes it. I think the issue I have with it is that it reduces the stakes of the film. Like they matter less and less because there's always going to be like another dimension you can go squeeze into or another version of the person.
Was that a big thing in you guys are like much more comic booky than me. But Was that a big deal in the comic books, like the multiverse?
Huge, became
Was it?
huge. And
Yeah.
DC went really heavy into it
Yeah,
too.
they
Like
did that
alternative universe.
Crisis battle where they kind of cleaned everything up there in the late 80s, early 90s in DC. Marvel probably went hard into the multiverses, like early 2000s. That's kind of when I quit reading comic books because I would agree with Nick. I Earth 616 and Earth 430, like it just became, like you said, there was no risk anymore. Like, oh, your favorite person died. Yeah, we'll pull the exact same person from Earth 617 and you're fine. Because it even got, before the multiverse stuff, they had the Spider-Man clone or storyline that, that kind of sucked. Like, you guys can't just keep Deus Ex Machina everything, there has to be some sort of like concern that these heroes are vulnerable. So I don't like that part about it. And I would agree, like from a comic book standpoint, I didn't like the Doctor Strange stuff and like the Silver Surfer stuff either, because like it just pulled away from the rest of the comics. Like, oh, you're fighting Dr. Octopus. Well, like Silver Surfer's fighting death, like the embodiment of death. And it's like, okay, I guess that is like pretty heavy, huh? Or like Doctor Strange is fighting Satan, or the embodiment of all evil, in the underworld, and you're like, okay, I mean that's
pretty big,
pretty intense, I guess. Like, watch out for the Rhino,
he's not the Rhino.
Yeah, so I didn't like those either. And conversely, from the movie standpoint, I have really no desire to watch Doctor Strange, the Eternals. Those ones just don't thrill me much. Guardians of the Galaxy I enjoy, but again, that feels more like Space Pirates Star Wars than it feels like larger than life. Except the second one, again, when you find out his dad's like a planet, a god, pretty much. That again, probably part of the reason I didn't like that one as much too, because then it started to do that, like, oh, now we're going here with these guys too, and when Adam Warlock comes out and things, that's going to really probably push me even further away from that stuff. So I hated it when the X-Men.
You're just growing up, Casey.
Well, the X-Men did tons of like time travel and
they had the Starjammers and whatever, the Lady Deathbird or whatever her name was, and they fought the Skrulls and things like that too. And like I just hated those. Like I saved my $2 that month. I don't care about that. Get back to Earth. Fight the
back to Earth.
But Magneto's doing some things. You guys got to get back there.
Get back to Earth.
So I was going to ask you guys on that note, that they've kind of let the cat out of the bag that the X-Men are going to be back in the MCU. So what's your thoughts? You going to ready for another Wolverine?
I'll be okay with it. Again, like it bothers me again that like the MCU has gotten so big and grandiose that the X-Men stories are going to feel minor, again, like, oh yeah, there's, these planets are getting destroyed and the X-Men are like, I just don't feel comfortable at the mall. Like that's your story, like, and I get
if they lean into that too much, you're right. I mean, that gets very tedious. And
so I'm okay if they kind of pull like they did with Spider-Man, where it's like, let's kind of roll the X-Men right into the action. Because again, like I don't need another X-Men origin story.
There's too many. Well, it'd take you forever to delve in all of them and dissect it.
Again, those origin stories now from the 60s to now have been restarted in the comic books a million times with like small variations of it, and they keep changing it too. So it's like too convoluted. Like throw Wolverine in there, have Wolverine fight the Hulk. They should do that in a movie. Just that.
Yeah, classic. I know a lot of people do want to see that.
Because
that was a huge thing in the comics. But
multiple times they've had some awesome battles. So for me, that's how I think you bring them in. Bring Wolverine in and the Hulk, and then go from there.
I have a hard time with any Wolverine other than Hugh Jackman, though. I mean, it was so iconic. It'd be like another Iron Man, like we said, or another Captain America other than Chris Evans. It's just like, God, they're always going to be measured up against that. And they could always do another interdimensional version of it, and, make it plausible in their storyline. But it's still like, I don't know, they're just mining it too deep, I think.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay with it. I mean, I've done the new Batman thing and been okay with it for the most part.
You're not tired of it though?
I'm tired of the origin scene thing. Like, I mean, I was fine when like Ben Affleck just rolled into Batman with like he's an old Batman. Okay,
you know
great,
what I
perfect.
really,
I love this.
you know what
Like,
role?
Thank God I don't have to hear about his family anymore.
You know what role in Batman that I really enjoyed, and the movie itself, obviously not very good, but in Justice League, like the Ben Affleck version of like Bruce Wayne and Batman is actually kind of fun in some ways, and he's like a good leader, kind of holds the team together, pulls them together, and he's not just like growing around and like in the rainy darkness and always trying, I don't know, always angry. I don't know. Yeah, very one-dimensional. It feels very one-dimensional in all the other films.
I like a more playboy type Bruce Wayne. Like, I'm rich as hell, and I mean, they did that. They tried to do that with like Christian Bale in that first one where they had those weird scenes where he's like out with the supermodels or whatever, and you're like, oh, and that felt so forced. Like that was not.
But I think it worked. Kate, I disagree because I think it works because Alfred tells him he needs to do that. He doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it from that end, but like again,
he was forced to do it.
I wish the Bruce Wayne character was just that. Like, I wish.
And he's kind of like, God, I'm not my. Moment. And in that movie, it fit. And where he's like, I'm not my dad. I'm not. His dad's like, oh, Thomas was such a philanthropist and blah blah blah. You should be carrying on the name. And he's like, I don't really want to, but he gets where he has to, right? And he's got to keep up this disguise or whatever. So. I like that element to it. I like there is that moment, and worked in the new Batman too, where it does add a little tension where people don't know who Batman is. And I think that is a nice little element to that, where in the MCU everybody knows who everybody is. There's no secret identities.
Right. Did you guys get into Daredevil?
Yeah. The show?
Yeah. What do you think? Did they confirm? Yeah, like the little cameo in No Way Home. Is he gonna pop back in the MCU?
I don't know if anything's actually been confirmed. They keep all that stuff so tight, whether they're gonna do anything. But that show was pretty good.
I liked the Netflix Defenders, Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Iron Fist was solid too.
I never saw Iron Fist, but
yeah, I thought it was worth watching.
Dude, Daredevil season 2 is the shit. When they introduce Punisher, and he's just out there killing because just like Casey said, there's no origin story yet. They saved that for his own show, but like he just shows up and just starts like taking out mobsters, and it works. It's such a good season.
Doing things. I thought that was cool in No Way Home. It's worth watching.
You'd like it, Casey. You should. Sure, it's like
they're
hard R stuff. It's hard R.
Yeah, that was like kind of that whole group of those Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and I thought they were good.
Yeah. See, that was more of that same where it was like, oh man, now I gotta watch like not only every movie but these series too.
But they don't. But they weren't technically in. Like they weren't really in the MCU.
Isn't Daredevil though supposed to be? I mean, now they pushed him in there.
Now he is. But at the time they made it, it was like separate business ventures and everything. So
because was it through ABC at that time?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because what was Marvel? Because there was like that Marvel Shield show that was actually on like our network
ABC.
TV, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that was that's all Disney owned. So that was part of the MCU.
Yeah. See, that stuff was just like, this is like a business now to like watch these movies. It pushed me away, but
I wasn't super into that. Didn't watch that really. But the Netflix shows, Jeremy's on the money, man. Michelle got into Luke Cage, and that got me into those, and
then they got into
Jessica Jones.
Where they joined up. Yeah, not the Avengers, the Defenders.
It's too confusing.
But then just watch Punisher 1 and 2.
Because what are the Avengers going to do if the Defenders stop stuff before they have to avenge things?
I don't know.
Then your name becomes dumb. I don't like it.
Yeah.
They're just like they're less superhero-y, more like real life type characters.
Everything is very down to earth, very, very down to earth.
I probably would like that again. So they're not fighting the Watchers that watch the entire universe. And
no,
nobody's dad is a planet.
Okay, I
You don't-
I
you
do
don't
enjoy
have to
that.
worry.
I do enjoy
No,
that.
I disagree. I think that's such a huge element to it. Ego of the
Yeah, a
living
giant
planet.
element. He's a damn planet. That's huge.
What?
Oh, you build yourself a penis?
Yeah, I hope
Yeah,
Galactus just comes and eats you. That's what you get for being a planet.
They need right. They need Galactus in this next round.
He's got to be the next one, right?
He has to be. I know
mean-
they're talking. Well, they talk about Jeremy. Who's the bad guy in Loki? The guy at the end of it. The guy who can control time. God, I'm blanking on it. But they're saying he's going to be the next big bad.
Really? Man,
Kang the Conqueror.
Kang the Conqueror. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Kang,
good,
yep.
but I just don't feel like he's big bad. But
No.
but
And
you
his
know what? I guess the Galactus is tough too because it's not like he's Mr. Personality either.
no, it's just. And do you go with like the giant celestial that's just like a bot? They tried that with Eternals and it was okay.
I hope they don't do like Fantastic Four where he's just like a purple cloud.
Oh, that sucked so bad.
Yeah, I was so disappointed. It's like, oh, Galactus. And like it's like a cloud of purple.
With some tentacles.
Yeah, so that sucked. Yeah, some of those things are going to be hard to figure out how to make that look believable, right?
It's getting better and better, though. I mean,
I think they'll do it. I think they'll find a way. Like that one in the Eternal, like I thought it was going to come off kind of hokey, but it ended up working out okay in that.
Yeah,
that movie was just again.
Still one of my least favorite.
I agree. The movie itself is not very good, and the villain sucks, and it's just the villain's so generic, and it's the same villain who played Pennywise. I mean, how much more do you need the table set for you to hit a home run, and you just freaking whiff?
Yeah, I have not seen the Eternals, so
what's
save
going
your
on?
time. If you don't, from the tastes that
I'll watch Daredevil first.
Expressed,
Yes,
that'd be much up your in your lane.
Ozarks is coming to an end, so I gotta find something new, I guess.
Yeah, watch Daredevil. Go back, mind some of that. 3 weeks from Stranger.
You'll be better for it.
3 weeks from now, Stranger Things 4. Volume 1.
That's probably gonna pull precedence on Daredevil.
It's gonna be the scariest movie I've ever seen.
It's good. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
I like the creepies.
I swung into Target yesterday, and when I got back to Sioux Falls on my way out of town, I'm like, I got to get some Mother's Day things and then I got drawn because Target has some type of licensing agreement with Stranger Things. They always have for like the last 6 years.
So you got like a 30 pack of Eggos?
No, but I got some merch, some hot Stranger Things merch for the kids.
My wife bought a
soundtrack
72 pack of Eggos from Costco. Apparently not in excitement for Stranger Things. So
Doritos did suck me in because they put a Demogorgon on their bag now.
Hey man, their sweet, spicy chili chips are to die for. I hope that flavor never goes away.
You wanted a top 5 of chips.
Yeah,
we got to do that sometime.
I think we could have some fun top 5s with some random stuff.
We will. I mean, we will. Why not? I put, as far as Doritos go, I talked to Connor and I'm like, you know what, buddy? I'm like, it's really, really hard to beat Original Cool Ranch. It's like, Dad, I disagree with you.
Ooh,
nacho cheese guy.
Really?
You gotta have a great salsa with either of those. Nacho cheese or Cooler Ranch.
I could hammer either of those out all day.
No
You
way.
need a great salsa. Yeah.
Especially if you get just a sweet bag of ranch that's just caked.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
where there's like
man.
an inch on your fingers.
Yeah,
when
you're
you're
like,
done.
oh, jackpot, baby. I
Yeah.
can't stop eating.
No, I'd be excited to see what your guys' lists are now. Jeremy, I need salsa on Doritos, Van Klompenberg. I'm curious
Unless
to
they're
see what's on
flaming
your
hot.
list.
Unless they're flaming hot.
That'd be the only one I would eat salsa with, probably.
Flaming hot?
Yeah, just to cut the heat down a little bit.
Are you not a heat guy? Not a heat guy?
I am to a point, I guess. Like I love hot wings, but I prefer to eat them in my own privacy while I just sweat and I'm gross. Like my body, I like heat, my body does not.
Fair enough.
I'm snotting, I'm profusely sweating. It's disgusting. It's really gross, but I enjoy it. Like we were just talking with my buddies, like, because we go out to my farm in the middle of nowhere with my buds and just have beers. I was like, we should do like a hot ones challenge where we get like the 10 hot sauces they have on hot ones and just go through it and see who can make it.
You know, we should do on one of these.
Hot sauces would be a good one.
We could do that. Or J-Bone, do you got a Paqui Death Chip?
I do have one, but my wife she's sworn me to not. I can't eat it. I told her I wouldn't.
Yeah,
she thinks I'll die.
I might enjoy doing a hot wing challenge on here one time. We could just all get the same like 5 hot sauces from Amazon or wherever.
But how do I know you're actually doing that?
You'll see me on screen. I'm on.
You're looking at it. You're like, oh, look at the blazing sauce, and then he's like, it's garlic parm.
No,
well, that'd be pretty.
I would do this for this podcast. I mean, I don't mind being miserable. I'm saying the Paqui one's already made. Like, you got to take it out of the coffin. You got to open up the packaging.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it. I'm too pussy.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I think I would live. It's pretty hard to die from something too spicy, right? I mean, it's
pretty painful.
I don't know. A lot of people going to emergency rooms. It's
could give you an ulcer.
Yeah,
been there, done that. I used to drink a lot.
You used to?
Yeah, mostly.
Potato.
Drink way less.
Did we finally like wake up during our pod, like the final 15 minutes?
Maybe. If you want to hear about irritability of a frozen shoulder.
Oh, tell me more.
Gotta have something. We have to have some sort of shtick.
Cinco de Mayo.
But yeah, I think about it. I would definitely do some sort of challenge on camera sometime.
All right,
I'm not afraid.
That'd be great for people to watch us.
Oh, we could do B-dubs. You don't have a B-dubs close, do you?
No.
Oh, speaking of B-dubs and Doritos, maybe you guys aren't B-dub guys at all.
We could buy the sauce.
Have you done the spicy Dorito sauce at B-dubs? The spicy nacho cheese sauce?
What?
Yeah, they have a Doritos sauce at Wild Wings. It's for a limited time. I had it the other day after the gym. I picked up a little 6-pack on my way home, and
this is B-dubs, not Taco Bell.
Yeah, correct. B-dubs. It was weird because they also gave me a bag of Doritos with them, and I was like, I don't really need a bag of Doritos with my wings. But yeah, the sauce was interesting. I can't say I liked it because it had like that nacho cheese flavor.
Oh,
okay.
And it felt very like manufactured,
like a powdered cheese.
I mean, that's what it tasted like. Like, it kind of tasted like Easy Mac with like buffalo sauce or spicy. You know, it tasted a lot like the spicy nacho Doritos, but that just felt weird on chicken, I guess.
Yeah,
you need Mrs. Renfro's ghost pepper queso.
This dude and I showed up at his place a few years back, and we're watching some football, and he breaks it out, and we're just sitting there snarfing it down with like snotty noses. He's like, it's really good though.
That's me with everything spicy.
It's good. Oh, on the border chips, man. On the border chips and Mrs. Renfro ghost pepper queso.
So that's what you're dipping your Cool Ranch Doritos in?
Your bowels will not thank you the next day.
It's hot.
I can't say my bowels are ever happy, so I'm all right. We're still recording, aren't we?
Yeah. That's what's going on.
This is
I digress.
Like I said, we finally hit our stride.
Yeah, that's probably a good note, maybe, to call her an evening. Thanks everybody for listening today. Again, you can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to see our ugly mugs, go to YouTube, PT Shop Talk. Follow us on Twitter at PT Shop Talk 1. And yeah, email us at ptshoptalk@gmail.com if you got any remarks, mad at our lists, have anything to add of value. We're willing to listen.
Yeah,
Nick's
throw some comments.
Still waiting for hate. He's still waiting for
shred these top 5 sometime, people.
Bring the smoke.
I need some people to help me out.
I am Iron Man.
So until next time, I'm Casey Hansen.
I'm Iron Man.
Groot.
Question mark?
Groot.
Groot.
This is what I deal with. See y'all next time.